Hello my friends, welcome to my channel, Lindy's Magpie Reads. If you're new here, I'm Lindy. This is the first time this year that I'm trying an outdoor video. We shall see how this goes. I tried filming a Friday Reads yesterday. It did not go well. Enough said. So I started over and this is it. All of the books in this video are picture books. I got 12 picture books, 11 picture books and one illustrated text. And none of them are graphic novels. These are real picture books, and I will be talking more about the format. If you've been following my channel, you know that I do regularly read picture books, but April is a special month for picture books because Jack of Spread Book Joy and Shelley of Shelley Swearingen are hosting for the second year Picture This, which is a readathon for adults to read picture books. That's what this video is all about, and 8 of the picture books that I'm going to be telling you about are primarily for an adult audience. Actually, some of them are only for adults. Parodies, humor, that kind of thing. Why not have fun with picture books? This is something that Shelley and Jack are encouraging us to do. They have got prompts. You can follow the links that I'll put below to find the announcements. There are other booktubers who have been participating so far. I've watched a few, including Becca's of Read Becca, and she's talking about Japanese picture books for her Japanese language learning. And Dia of Novel Ideas has taken all of the prompts into account, and she's got a great selection, all kinds of books. Many of them feature nature. I know that Dia loves being out in nature, and her books reflect that. And Alice of the Giant Bookshelf has got some British powerhouse picture book authors on her list, including Oliver Jeffers, actually I think he's Irish, Julia Donaldson, and Lauren Childs, and Mimi Gray. And she's planning to do a deep dive on a Canadian illustrator, John Claassen, so I'm looking forward to that. Alice, please do it. That's going to be great. So, without any further ado, sit back and enjoy some picture books. I'm going to start with this bestseller, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by the cartoonist Charlie Mackesy. Is from Northumberland in England. It's one that's hard to classify. At the library in Edmonton here, they've put it in the graphic novel teen category. It's a picture book, and it's for all ages, but I would say mainly for adults. The story is a fable. Oh, look at the gorgeous end papers, always a sign of a good picture book. About a boy and 3 animals who help the boy find home. I resisted picking this up because I thought it might be too schmaltzy for me, and it is a little, but I don't know what I've got against edifying books like this. I wouldn't say that I'm jaded, but there you go. Here's an example of why I call this a picture book. What is that over there? It's the wild, said the mole. Don't fear it. And you see how tiny the boy and the mole are compared to the landscape. And here again, it's an example of how the pictures change our interpretation of what the words are. And here we have an example. I'm not afraid, said the mole. And we wouldn't know what those words were referring to if there wasn't an illustration. The mole facing a fox who's in a snare. This is one of the few pages, by the way, that has something that's more like a graphic novel with panels, sequential presentation of narrative. Almost all of the rest of these pages are illustration with text taking up a whole page, or no text at all, like this page is another reason why this is a picture book. The fox doesn't say much, so here we see he's expressing his love by having paced out the heart in the snow. I quite like this one. Isn't it odd? We can only see our outsides, but nearly everything happens on the inside. I really like the illustrations, and I really like Mackesy's handwriting. Calligraphy is so gorgeous. This is something that doesn't work for every reader, but to me, the handwriting is such a personal connection to the author, and it's part of the art. That everything is made by hand is part of why it appeals to me. These illustrations really remind me of the ones in A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh stories, the ones by E.H. Shepard. Oh, I really like this one too. On this particular page, the greatest illusion, said the mole, is that life should be perfect. The author has included a pencil note at the bottom. My dog walked over the drawing, clearly trying to make the point. And I love the way that it's included, even though it's kind of messed up a bit. And this one actually is an example of what I don't like about this book. Is your glass half empty or half full? Asked the mole. I think I'm grateful to have a glass, said the boy. I've got nothing against gratitude, but some of these aphorisms like this one, it seems like it's something that you could buy in a shop to hang on your wall, and it's a bit much for me. But all in all, I gave this 4 stars. I think it's quite lovely, and there you have it. The boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. Next up is the only book out of this selection that is probably not a picture book, but rather it's a text with a lot of illustrations. This is Haruki Murakami's The Strange Library, and the particular edition that I have is the UK one that is designed by Susan Dean. Again, lovely end papers. But this a short story, which is basically about fear, is one that stands alone without the illustrations. But what the illustrations do is add to the kind of Alice in Wonderland horror feel of this story. Things getting bigger and smaller. There's something that's kind of unsettling about the combination of the illustrations and the text. But hey, this kind of thing's going on in libraries everywhere, you know, more or less, that is. This news staggered me. In libraries everywhere? I stammered. If all they did was lend out knowledge for free, where would the payoff be for them? But that doesn't give them the right to saw off the top of people's heads and eat their brains. Don't you think that's going a bit too far? Yeah, maybe so. If you've got a taste for weird and dark, give this one a shot. The translation from Japanese, by the way, is by Ted Goossen. And speaking of weird and dark, here's a Canadian entry into the adult picture book market. Me Write Book, It Bigfoot Memoir by Roumieu. This is humor. Again, gorgeous end papers. The introduction is by Mr. Loch Ness Monster of Loch Ness, Scotland. Stink. Yes, everyone know Bigfoot smell like shit. Please make effort not to point out every time you see Bigfoot. Thank you. Picture book format where the illustrations complement the text. We learn that Bigfoot was once a big shot. He was living high on the hog. Things did not go well for him. He's got bills to pay, and without the illustrations you wouldn't have much idea of how he was paying his bills until you start looking at him pole dancing and people barfing, petting day at the retirement home, and so on. Details about how a certain element of woodland society is trying to keep Bigfoot down. Now, maybe I should have had a warning before I opened these pages, because there is some blood and gore. It is in a sort of horror clown kind of style. Please, no talk to Bigfoot like he is stupid. I love this spread where Bigfoot talks about his having a marginalized youth, and there's a play on Peter Rabbit, and Bigfoot eventually giving Farmer Wilson his comeuppance, and the carrots are now very sweet. Bigfoot's outwardly violent book of inner peace will smash away sadness, tear low self-esteem, a new a-hole, and so on. That's Sasquatch story. Many of the picture books for adults that I'm talking about today play with satire and nostalgia, and this one perfectly exemplifies that. Everything I need to know I learned from A Little Golden Book by Diane Muldrow. For any adult readers who remember the Little Golden Books, this will be a pleasure. As with The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, this is a book about advice for living, and it uses pages from Little Golden Books from the 50s and the 60s. The information about which book it was, who wrote it, are credited. Musicians of Bremen, illustrations by J.P. Miller.
Be a hugger. Love this one. Turn off the TV from time to time. This one's from Naughty Bunny, written and illustrated by Richard Scarry in 1959. Start planning that dream trip, from Open Up My Suitcase by Alice Lowe, illustrated by Corinne Malvern, 1954. This might be my favorite page because of the clever line, "Don't forget your antioxidants." The illustration is from The Color Kittens by Margaret Wise Brown, illustrated by Alice and Martin Provenson, 1949. The Provensons are children's picture book stars, really, for how many books that they have illustrated together. I think that gives you enough of an idea of everything I need to know I learned from A Little Golden Book. Now, another book by Margaret Wise Brown that everybody knows is Goodnight, Moon. Here's an example of a picture book for adults that plays on the nostalgia, but also parents' frustration with bedtime and trying to get your child to sleep. This one was also a bestseller, was really popular when it came out a few years ago. Go the F to Sleep by Adam Mansbach, and it's illustrated by Ricardo Cortés. The cats nestle close to their kittens. The lambs have laid down with the sheep. You're cozy and warm in your bed, my dear. Please go the fuck to sleep. The eagles who soar through the sky are at rest, and the creatures who crawl, run, and creep. I know you're not thirsty. That's bullshit. Stop lying. Lie the fuck down, my darling, and sleep. The flowers doze low in the meadows, and high on the mountains so steep. My life is a failure. I'm a shitty-ass parent. Stop fucking with me, please, and sleep. And so on. A good example of a picture book that is not for kids, and so are these next ones that I'm going to be telling you about. They are all parodies of Goodnight, Moon. There have been so many parodies of it. I've just got 3 to show you, including Goodnight iPad. It's by Ann Droyd, obviously a pseudonym. She uses the color scheme of Goodnight Moon. There were 3 little nooks with 10,000 books. The bookshelves have got spider webs, everything, papers in the garbage. He's reading on a nook, having his drink. Everyone else is enjoying all of the electronic entertainment. And there's the old lady who's trying to sleep. The bing bongs and beeps of emails and tweets keeping her awake. And she's fed up. Okay, that's it. Good night, iPad. Good night, Doom. Good night, bird launching over the moon. Good night, nooks and digital books. Someone's finishing off that drink. Okay, everyone, bedtime. Baby's gonna crash after the alcohol. Even Papa is saying, do we have to? Good night, buzzing. Good night, beeps. Good night, everybody who should be asleep. And in our final scene, Somebody's reading under the covers. Goodnight, Brew, a parody for beer people by Ann Breated. Illustrations by Allie. This is probably the least successful of the 3 parodies I've got. But still, if you're into beer, in the great brew room there was a kettle that shone, and a gramophone, and a pitcher of a chocolate stout with 2 feathers of foam. And there were 3 little otters in charge of the water. Sometimes it's quite a stretch with the rhymes. And there are brew basics at the back. And next I have Goodnight Lab, a scientific parody by Ferrie. In the great green lab, there was a laser and a lab notebook and a picture of Einstein with a stern look. And there were 3 sticky notes stuck to lab coats, and copper wire, and a pair of pliers, and a spectrometer, and a thermometer, and so on. When I got to the end of this book, I discovered that Ferrie has a baby university series. So these are board books with titles like Rocket Science for Babies and Quantum Physics for Babies, General Relativity for Babies, and I was curious to find out more. And sure enough, there were copies at my public library of titles like this. And I always wanted to know more about what exactly is blockchain. So in Blockchain for Babies, Ferrie and Marco Tomamichel, I found out. I don't know how much understanding babies would have about the text, but these simple shapes are certainly suitable for babies, and the way pieces fit together remind me of babies' toys. What's this? It's an apple. What's this? It's a carrot. I can certainly see how adults can have a good time with children on their laps, and at the same time learn about how blockchain works, like I did. And another one from the same series, the ABCs of Economics, again by Ferrie, and this one is illustrated by Veronica Goodman. This one is a lot more complicated than the blockchain book. A is for asymmetric. Now, there are 3 different levels of difficulty, but even level A, I guess vocabulary, sure. Asymmetric, boom, capital. You can see babies are doing something with this. The library copy's been scribbled in with crayons. D is for demand, E is for equilibrium. Keynesian economics. Nash equilibrium. I have to say, I did learn things from this. There you go. ABCs of Economics. My final 2 books are actually picture books for children, or all ages, including children, and this one is a fine example. A is for B, an alphabet book in translation. It's by Ellen Heck, who is a printmaker. Such gorgeous scratchboard illustrations. And I love the concept that we speak to each other in many languages. And in some of them, A is for bee. Bee, the insect, in Portuguese is abelha, or in French, abeille. P is for monkey, C is for parrot, D is for turtle, E is for snail, escargot in French. There is a link on the publisher website. The publisher is Levine Querido, and you can listen to native speakers saying these words. It's not quite complete. When I tested it out, a few of them didn't have links yet, but most of the words are there. This is such a gorgeous book. I absolutely love it. Definitely a book for all ages to enjoy. And these are all the languages represented. 79 or 80 different languages, and A is for B. This is the last book that I'm going to tell you about today, my absolute favorite of the whole bunch. It's called What Feelings Do When No One's Looking, translated from Polish by Jennifer Croft, who also translated all of Olga Tokarczuk's writings. The author is Tina Oziewicz, and illustrations are by Aleksandra Zajac. Illustrations are done in pencil. It's a very quiet, calming kind of picture book. These subtle illustrations all about feelings. Curiosity always climbs as high as possible to the treetop, the roof, or the chimney. Joy bounces on the trampoline. Gratitude warms. Seeing feelings knit warms my heart. So the feelings are portrayed as creatures. There's imagination who travels an unbeaten path. Calm pets a dog. We don't know exactly if they're animals or, I don't know, moomins or what exactly. But doesn't that make sense? Because what are feelings? Here's freedom. Wearing no pants. Pants are used as a sail. This is definitely a book that can be looked through over and over. I think a book that's enjoyable for adults as well. Oh, kindness quiets the storm. Isn't that beautiful? There's hate, friendship. This is a good example of the type of wonder that I really appreciate in a picture book. Love is an electrician, and it's not immediately obvious what this illustration is doing. I mean, we do see a heart for love, and holding on to a light bulb or warmth. Light and warmth, is that love? No, it's that kind of questioning that we perhaps don't do often enough as adults. And then finally, where does all this live? In us. Which brings me back to this page in The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Isn't it odd? We can only see our outsides, but nearly everything happens on the inside. It's a book about feelings that gave me all the feelings. What makes a great picture book? Here you have it.
I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you're familiar with any of these books. Do you plan to read any that you haven't read? Do you know of other Goodnight Moon parodies that you might want to mention or that you recommend? And what about Baby University? What do you think of that series? Is it a good idea or not? What are your thoughts? I appreciate your comments, and even if you haven't got much to say, just say hello. Love to know who's watching. Thanks again, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.